Hello, everyone. Welcome to this author talk with Dr. William Abur. Before we get started, I would like to just say, do an acknowledgement of country. Wyndham City Council recognises Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first custodians of the lands on which Australia was founded. Council acknowledges the Wathaurong, Wurrung, Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nation as the first traditional owners of the land in which Wyndham City is being built. Council pays respects to the wisdom and diversity of past and present elders. We share commitment to nurturing future generations of elders in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest tonight. We've got Dr. William Abur with us. He is a researcher and lecturer in social work. He's researched a range of different areas. Some of these include refugee settlement, mental health, trauma, and youth and family well-being. He has also worked in secondary schools, community mental health and settlement services. Prior to coming to Australia as a refugee from Kenya, he worked in refugee camps as a counsellor and a manager for the Counselling Centre for 7 years. Dr. Abur is the first speaker to share his story via our new Community Stories program, and we look forward to offering further talks later in the year. Welcome, Dr. William Abur.
Thank you. Thank you, Del. I really appreciate the opportunity that you gave me. Um, just in a few moments, I will be asking uh, the audience to be with me so that I can set up. Um, so this week is a refugees week, and I choose to do talk about about my books, which is also related with the refugees, and it's about documenting the refugees journey. So before I launch into this, the first thing that I wanted to do, I wanted to acknowledge the Wyndham City, especially the library community and the team that are working there. I wanted to acknowledge their work and the support that they offered, and also some of my friends who have done this work behind the scenes in terms of promotion. Having said that, I wanted to acknowledge the country and pay my respect to all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as the custodian of this land. I want to pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and also the future generation. So if you look at the title of these books, you would raise some question: why is it a new life? Why would it be, why did I choose that title to say a new life with opportunities and challenges? Now, um, as I said, it is about refugees' journey, a journey of South Sudanese that migrate to Australia, and most of them were in refugees camp. So they came to Australia and settle in Australia and begin their new life, which is with opportunities, and opportunities such as education, opportunities such as work opportunities, opportunities such as having a capacity or social engagement that you can be able to travel from place to place or from state to state. And I'm using this example for those who came through East Africa. So if those who were in refugees camp, they were confined in the camp and they were not allowed to travel, a lot as the way that we live here in Australia. If I want to go to Sydney, and of course, before COVID-19, if I want to leave now to go to Sydney, if COVID-19 is not there, I would be able to go. That's where the new life with opportunities come from. You look at education aspect, you look at the freedom of movement, you look at the job opportunities that you can have, and that can give you that privilege of setting your life and do what you want to do. Now, the challenges part is well known for many of us who are in this forum, and especially those who are keen to know what is happening with refugees or know what is happening with a settlement of South Sudanese. So there are a lot of challenges that happen with the with the especially with refugees or migrant from African community, and that also include things such as parenting, for example, cultural shock, for example, managing some of the expectation, such as understanding the new way of living, the new life, the new system, navigating the system is quite challenging for somebody who just migrate from somewhere where the system is very different, the language is very different, and then you settle here. It is a lot of work for you to be able to navigate and learn from there. So that's where this idea of title come from. Now, I wanted to highlight to the audience to bring them back to the process of migration and resettlement. That process of migrations and resettlements is not a easy journey. It's a journey that involves making a tough decision, whether as individual or a family, to make a decision and to move to another country to seek for a better life and opportunities, as I mentioned. It also can be uncertainty, for people when they move, when while they are making those decisions. Sometimes they are not aware where they are going to, whether they are going to meet those opportunities that they are dreaming for, or whether they are going to have peace of mind that they are looking for, or whether it is going to turn out to be a different, a different life in terms of challenges. So if you look at, I'm talking about families and young people. Some families enjoy settling here. Some families, they find it very confronting. They find it really, it is more difficult to parent their children. It is more difficult to have peace of mind. It is more difficult to meet some of their expectation, the expectation that they dream for, the thing that they wanted to achieve, become more difficult for them to reach, because either because of the language difficulties, or either because of other barrier uh, to their way of navigating or understanding the system or the country. That itself is something that people don't realize when they are making those decisions. There are some people that can also, they are very much aware. They are very much aware that yes, I am migrating to the new area, new country. That will require me to have a tolerance, that will require me to find, to begin learning a new thing, a new language, a new way of doing things. Yes, I may have a cultural shock. Yes, I need to integrate, my own way of understanding, the system, the law, the and sometimes yes, there are some prejudice that may come in. For example, the term refugees become a bigger issue that people, even you live here for over 15 years, or yeah, or around 15 years, I begin to realize that some people don't like the term being called refugees anymore. They are questioning. They are saying, how long am I going to be called refugee? Is it the how does it work in the media? Even somebody who is professional can be, uh, and I hope that it can be described, oh, refugee and all that. Even if you You have said, okay, I had enough time. I don't need to be, I don't see myself being a refugee. I made a decision. I have accepted to be the citizen of this country. I don't need to be called to be described as a refugee anymore. So those are the new ideas that are coming in that I'm hearing from the community, and I also, as hearing from my own family. So if you were to ask me what is this book about, so to answer that question is that this book provides some of the critical issues that the community, the South Sudanese community, encountered during their journey of settlement within Australia. So that book documents, the story, the challenges of the community. It also documents the settlement issues, the settlement challenges that may also not that are not only apply for South Sudanese community. They are also apply to the other communities that are also come here as refugees, and I'm thinking about the asylum seekers, who are here. They Some of them are going through hardship, like the other people that were settling before. Yes, the issues of African communities are still there. They haven't gone away. We do have issues with young people. Families are not settling well, and that can take time. It's a journey uh, that cannot be addressed within a short time. Now people are saying, well, young people are committing these serious whatever crime or activities that are not community is not pleased with. Does it Is it something to do with their culture or where they come from? The community is saying no, it got nothing to do with their culture or where they come from. Most of these young people were born between, not in South Sudan, but they were born between different countries. I guess, in refugee camp, they have not really witnessed some of the difficulties that the parent might have witnessed. So they might have learned a new culture which is not the culture of their own parent or their own country. Yet there might be some influence there, but that is not. I'm hearing from the community that this is no. We need to be able to position ourselves clearly. So this book is valuable to the community members, to the community group. It is also valuable to the settlement workers, and valuable to the government and to the council, to the policy makers, people who are working with these communities that whether they are migrant or you call them refugees community. This book document some of the insightful knowledge that can be so useful to you as a worker or a policymaker, or somebody who is working in that space. Whether you are working with young people or families, you will be able to get this some of the useful information in this book. So as I said, um, so I just wanted to give the overview of the book, and just a quick information of what this book is and why it is important and what the community can get out of it. So there are two parts. I talk about employment, and I talk about participation in sport. So the engagement of the community, whether people are engaged in the sport or they are engaged in employment, those are the opportunities that are available for the community. Now, if you are not engaged, if you are not participating in anything, uh, in those areas, or if you are not connected with the council activities, for example, then your settlement will be different to those individual or those families that are engaged or that are participating in those areas, such as uh, you know employment opportunity, or somebody who take his children to participate in sport, or a young person who take the opportunity to say, well, I need to be engaged in a sport. And I use example thinking about, some of the good players from South Sudanese. If you look at Majak Daw, for example, Alier, for example, Australia we love our sport. We love to see these young people engaging in a sport. So the integration of Alier and Majak Dao is completely different from his peer, from his colleague, some of the members within his South Sudanese community. You would find that it is completely different. His integration is more higher than the other members of the community, or than the other young people who choose to say, well, I don't want to participate in a higher level, but I will just limit myself within South Sudanese community. And it's the same thing, my connection with you guys who are in this forum, compared to the other member of South Sudanese who may not, who have not taken that opportunity to connect, is very much different. So this is where those opportunities come in. This is where you build your social capital. This is where you build your, whether it's a psychological capital or physical capital. This is where you can get it. And for us as a community, my recommendations, I normally say yes, refugees or people from refugees background need to be supported. They need to be supported by the host community, and especially at the council level, and also at different government level or neighborhood or different organization. They need to be welcome. They need to be given those opportunity of support and engage with them and give them that opportunity to connect with other things that they may not be able to connect. And in that way, you would be able to do your job, as a good citizen of this country, somebody who is building the society. Then you would actually have a very good feeling at the end of the day, and you will be so proud. And I know this. I know this. A lot of us, a lot of people within Australia who supported young South Sudanese people, and those young South Sudanese people become successful, or their family, they grow up and they are in a different level. Those people, the credit go to them. The credit goes to those people who were supporting them. So it is a great opportunity to be able to support and to be able to assist as much as you can. Now, this time is, I call it the interview time. Yes, you may be able to ask questions uh, online, and they will be read out. Or if you want to ask your question, you whatever you turn your mic on, or you unmute yourself and ask question, it is totally fine with me. I normally believe that in such, the best way for people to learn is not about me talking over the people. It is about people asking the question. Once you ask question, the area that you are not too sure, whether it is the area of mental health, trauma, or area of employment, or area of sport, or area of discrimination, for example, feel free to ask that question. These are the area that I'm aware of. I may not know it all, but I'm actually aware of this in terms of my research. So feel free to put your question there. I mean, ask question, and Dell will be able to facilitate that. With this, I wanted to stop here and say thank you for listening to me.
Thanks, Dr. Abur. So you'll have to put your questions in the meeting chat. We can't put on our mics during this, but we've got one question, which is from Micah. And she said, You were talking about former refugees not wanting to be called refugees anymore, and I am curious whether you could give a rough idea of how soon slash long after their arrival that a refugee would have made that mental shift for themselves. And is there a commonly preferred term like new resident or new settler or immigrant that they prefer?
Great question. Great question. Now, um, if somebody first step is when you migrate here, yes, you are given that of permanent resident, for example. Once you are given a permanent residence, yes, there is a possibility people can still play the term there, the term refugees, migrants. But once you are somebody accepted and say, well, I am a citizen of this country. I, you know, I participate in the oath of saying yes, I will be able to do the right thing in this country, and sign that agreement. Then I don't see myself being a refugee again, or I don't want to be described as a refugee when I'm actually a citizen of this country, and I hold that paper of the citizenship certificate, and people are still describing me a refugee. It's a bit disappointing, and it is a bit annoying to some other people. Yes. What is the best way of describing whether we say the emerging community? Yes, for the in terms of people who are working in a policy space, yes, you are welcome to use those terms. Emerging community, newly arrived communities. Uh, well, I don't know whether the South Sudanese are still being described as a newly arrived communities or community, or they are, it still be described in emerging community, or we use, our beautiful term of multicultural communities, and we nail it down, whatever specific community that we want to see. But we don't want to see this thing in a media, because media has been unfair. It has played unfair politics on the community in different levels. So, and I give you example, of some of the media thing that make the community feel disappointed, is that uh, uh, last year during a COVID-19, there was a report that was made by the former a former office holder for um, uh, for Abbott, uh, and he said South Sudanese are the one, is spreading the COVID-19 in Victoria. By that time, when he made that comment, there was no any single person that has got a COVID, that was having a COVID infection within South Sudanese community in Victoria, that we are aware. That is how the prejudice are. That is how it is, that somebody who work in a very high level of a government should have done a diligence work, and to put that in the media. So it just it's a simple thing, and that is my message to the media, that they need to do a diligent work before putting the message out. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We've got a couple more questions. We've got Stephanie Stefan has asked, said, thank you, Dr. William. A question for you. How common is intergenerational tension slash conflict between parents and children? And would you partly attribute the justice involvement of some young people to this intergenerational disconnect?
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you very much. That's a great question. So you had a very good question, that a question that I'm very passionate about. Yes, the intergenerational conflicts is one of the reason why why we see young people in a juvenile detention or in a youth justice system is because those young people are not uh, taking the word or advice from the parent. So they think that they are more uh, more knowledgeable with the system, with the Australian way of life, and therefore uh, they, they 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 are not able to consider their advice from the parent. Now there are two. I will say this in two parts. Yes, that is a issue of young people, but also there is a very serious issue with parents as well, with families, if you like. So most of the people forgot that they have migrated to this country, and therefore their parenting style, the way that they were brought up, the way that my parent brought me up, is completely different with the way that I'm going to bring up my children. So the language that my parent used when I was young person is completely different with the language that I can use here. My parents, when we were brought up, yes, you could tell here when South Sudanese settle here, you could find that some of the parents were having a very limited English, for example. They did not have access to the better education, and therefore teenagers who have gone through the system, they speak well. In terms of composing their message or communicating, they communicate well. And some of them find themselves being interpreters for their parent or reading the letters for their parent. And therefore, so that remove away the parenting responsibility or the power of the parent, and the young people see themselves that, okay, I'm able to advise you or to give you this information about the system, and now you are telling me this, I'm not going to listen to you. That's where the tension is. There is also that the parent projects their own trauma, the frustration, based on what they have gone through, based on their life journey. They also project this on children, on the young people, and that cause the tension. That create the tension. So you cannot lecture me about your, whatever your culture, the way that you were brought up. That does not work in a modern world. That is a message from young person. A young person say, well, you can't tell me that you can't go out. I have to go out with my friend. You can't tell me that, oh, uh, you come and do this or that. I got to do what I want to do. Parents feel that they are completely disarmed. They don't have a responsibility. I mean, their responsibility has been taken away because they find themselves that they have been threatened by, uh, you know, either young people saying, well, if you don't, I'm going to report you to the system. I'm going to report you to at the school. I'm going to, I can either call police for myself, or I can, the child protection is going to come and question you. And those are the things that is scared the parents, and because they have a very limited knowledge actually, so that is scared them and not to perform their job, to look after young people. And of course, they also project what I call their own frustration, their own trauma, their own, whatever they have gone through, they project on young people, which is unfair at the same time. It is also unfair that a young person is downplay, saying, well, I can't listen to you as a parent, so don't lecture me about your the way that you were brought up. It is none of my business, and I don't want to hear that. So, Stefan, I feel free to do follow up. I hope I have answered your question. I hope that I have given you some idea in terms of the tension and things that can contribute into the youth justice issues. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got another question from Swati. And Stefan says, thank you, Dr. William, much appreciated.
Yep.
But the question from Swati is, there seems to be a lot of emphasis on engagement in sports. Why is this? Is it because of this country's emphasis on sport or preference on part of the South Sudanese immigrants? What about engagement in other pastimes?
Sweet, you just asked the question that I was having a conversation with my son last week. It's a very interesting question. Uh, so most of the young people from South Sudanese, including my own son, play the basketball, and they enjoy. They see that is a area that they can compete. They can show their talent. They can show that and most of them do have a dream of going to play, or joining the college in America, for example, the basketball lead or whatever, which is what is happening in America now. That would be completely I support the idea of the sport, because in my research, when I did my research, I look at those young people that were engaged in sport and their level of understanding and connection with Australian society. And I find that their connection with Australian society was more better compared to those young people that are not either connected with Australian community, and they are not even either connected with their own South Sudanese community. And these are the young people, I call them. They form their small community. And their small community, for example, they may live in the park. I mean, uh, get their accommodation. The group of young people come there. They gather there. They do what they want to do. They go at the park. They sit there. They do whatever they want to do. They enjoy. They got nothing to do with South Sudanese activities. They got nothing to do with Australian community activities. They may end up, creating some activities that may cause problem for them, where the police may come in and have some suspicious to say, well, we need to know what is happening here. And sometimes young people are young people. They may end up, drinking and fight there and cause a lot of problem. I think that part, Stefan, will be so interesting to know. Those young people, I call them, they form their own small community. If you compare the young people who are engaged in sport and those young people who form their small community, and that may take who are they end up in juvenile detention, you would understand why there is empathy in sport. Now, coming back to this, I'm somebody who is passionate about education, and I wanted young people to set their bar high in terms of education. And I was having a conversation with my son to say, well, you know, let's talk about education. Where did you set your bar high in terms of education? And he said, well, I wanted to be an athlete. That is the area that I'm passionate about. And I said, yes, I understand that is one area, but I don't want you to be able to have only that the only option. I want you to think about some other option and set your bar high in that case. The only way that you can compete in this in this modern world, you got to be able to set your bar high. And I went back and thought about, the um, African American young people who are engaged in sport. And although, don't get me wrong, some of them do really do well. They really do well in terms of working hard. And I realize that sport is a hard work. It's not easy. You have to work hard compared to somebody who said, well, I need to focus on education and then, do more reading and do more homework, and compared to somebody that has to attend the training all the time, and you have to do a lot of physical work. It is a lot of work. It is a hard work. And I said, look, those young people in America or here, they they are doing a very tough job for them to get into that level. And I didn't say this to my son, but I came to realize and question myself and say, well, would was all these young people, Black American, who are now become successful in the sport, if we were to look at their backgrounds, sports tend to be, well, most of the young people that are engaged in this area, they tend to be young people that are emerging from mostly disadvantaged communities or families, and they have to work hard to go there. I never seen, I have not seen, and maybe correct me, I was thinking about some of the millionaire people, whether they have really put their kid into the sport and work hard in the sport and be, athlete or whatever at the higher level of the sport. Don't get me right. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sport is a beautiful thing because we all need to go and do exercise in a modern world. It is something that is good for health, physical capital or even psychological capital you can gain there through sport. And of course, if you are employed there, you can get, financial capital, and of course, you get your social capital through networking with the group. Yes, your question is at its place. Why is it only sport that we engage people in? Why we don't think about other bigger ideas or bigger activities to engage young people? It is a question that I have thought about it, and I thought about it, with my own children. I haven't discussed this with the community, but I thought about it with my own children, and I don't want to be to be somebody that is engaging children, my young people, on sport only, and not setting the bar on the other side. So I want to be able to balance them, to set the bar high for both. So that's how I see it. I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you. Swati just said, thank you, Dr. Abur. I understand better now. I was wondering about the creative arts, music, etc., but not to worry. We've got another question. We've got a few come in here. We've got our next question from Rhonda. She's asked, could there be a stronger mentoring programs for young people in Wyndham? And also, are there particular challenges in keeping young people from the South Sudanese community connected to education in Wyndham? What support do they need to keep them participating in all levels of education?
Great, thank you. First thing, mentoring is a great idea, and it's something that I'm passionate about it. I want young people to be team up, whether they are team up with the individual person that can mentor them. That is a great way of helping young person. So if people are put their hand up and say, I'm ready to assist and to help a young person and mentor a young person, uh, it is a great service to the community and great service to the young person. So I encourage people to be able to do the mentoring. For example, I am one of the person that say I wanted to be able to mentor young people, but sometimes, there are lack of resources that are also facing those individuals that want to do the right thing, that want to support young people. They also need to be supported. So that will be the question for the council, for example, if they want to set up the mentoring program that can support, give the resources to the mentors and mentors. That will be the best way. They need to be supported. If people put their hand up, of course they need to be supported by the council, and for them to be able to support young people as well. That's how I see it. Mentoring is a good thing, and it has been, it's something that has been done in many parts of the world, and especially in African communities. The mentoring is a bigger thing. They listen to the uh, people that they know that there is something that they have to learn from. Now the difficulties in terms of education and term of mentoring, the challenges that we face, and it is very common in any society. It's not only South Sudanese or migrant community. Now the challenges is any person who finds them herself or himself as a disadvantaged person or a family, they are hard to be engaged. They don't have capacity to go and participate because they are overshadowed by whatever issues that they are facing, and therefore uh, they see whatever additional activities that they are going to do, they see it as a problem, and they don't want to engage, and that is a challenge that we are facing. So people may be, we may have a very wonderful program in Wyndham in terms of mentoring or education, but you would also find that some people don't want to participate there. They don't want to engage there because they are highly, you know, vulnerable, or they are highly dysfunctioning, members of the community because of social issues that they are facing. And when I say this, that includes even mental health, mental health problem. So that those are the difficulties that we face. So those young people from disadvantaged families or communities, they see themselves even just they don't have even a high level of having ignoring a small comment at the school that may be perceived that as a bullying or whatever, for someone to be able to say, well, it doesn't really apply to me, and therefore I don't need to be bothered about this. I need to focus on my work. I need to focus on what I want to achieve, and that require you to have a high level of understanding, and for you to be able to navigate that. And unfortunately, most of the young people or who are in a vulnerable position, they don't have those skills, and therefore they don't have capacity to participate in some of the activities that they need to engage to assist them. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a couple more questions. I think it's Angela, just under another name. So we've got, thank you, Dr. Abur. I'm keen to hear some of your suggestions/recommendations on how governments or tiers can better support South Sudanese refugees. Oh, that was kind of just covered.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so we'll
That's all right.
go.
That's okay. Yep.
We'll go to the next question, which is from Micah. Within the broad Australian sporting community, it is common for families to support their athletes by attending games and becoming involved in the club. Is that common for South Sudanese families of sporting teams?
Not really, not at all, not at all. I spend most of my time, most of my weekend, especially Saturday, I spend most of my time at Eagle Stadium because I live in Wyndham, and I have kids that play basketball. So my job on every Saturday is to spend time there. I got young person that play in the morning around 8 or 9, and then the other one, uh, you know, around 12 o'clock. The other one sometime 1 or 2. So I dedicate that time for my time to spend. But I don't see many parents from South Sudanese, unfortunately. It's not it's not to put the community down, but it is something that I encourage the parent. I encourage the parent to be part of the sport, club or sport journey for the young person, if they want their young people to engage in sport. In that way, more many Australian families, I have they do come there. They enjoy. They grandparents, uh, relative, parent, they come there and watch, and you wouldn't go you wouldn't go disappointed. When you see a young person doing a right thing at the sport, you would actually enjoy your time. So I don't get bored when I go at Eagle Stadium. It's something that I enjoy. It become hobby for me, that I spend that time and enjoy seeing my kid, doing the right thing. And sometimes, yes, making a wrong choices in terms of throwing the ball in a, or not passing the ball or whatever. Those are the things that can make uh, the game more exciting. So yes, unfortunately, there's more work that need to be done by the community leaders and by the family members or the parent or people like me, influential members. We need to be able to share this message to the community and encourage parents to support their young people, through their journey when they are participating in a sport.
Thank you. Yeah. So Micah said she wonders whether clubs need to be more welcoming, which is
Yep.
fair. I think every club would be different, really, and maybe they might be encouraged to assign some volunteers to show new families around. Um, yeah. So there's some good
It
suggestions.
good suggestion, Michael. It's club need to show a leadership. They they have to show the leadership in the community. They need to be a great role models for the community generally, and especially for the new families that are not too sure, that are not confident, that are still chiding. They are still saying, "Well, am I being welcome here?" So, sport leaders, team, let's say team managers or coach or other people that are also involved in a club leadership, they need to be able to show this. And that is a good way of making the family that is that family welcome and family confident to participate by showing that, even just coming and say, yep, have a conversation how the young person play, and have a conversation and has is there anything that that we need, we need to do to support you, support young person, or do something that we can do. That's something that the sport can do. Sport should not show, unfortunately. There are some people that are, they may show some behaviors that can be perceived as a community perceived as racist behaviors. For example, in there was this year there was a young person that the club, a coach decided to put this young person from South Sudanese family. They decide to put this young person to the next level, not because of his skill being a competitive, but because the young person is tall and is perceived that no, he is not playing in the right age, so we need to put him up there. So people have a conversation, the parent have conversation and coach, and they did not involve the family, and then they say, well, you go there, go and play in that level because you can't play in this level. And the question was that the young person was questioned about his age. Was asked, oh, can you show us your ID about your age? A young person produced it, Nobody that approach the family. Nobody that approach people to say, this is something that we wanted to know this. So I came and learned about this through other person that went and find out and have a chat with young person, and young person said, well, this is what happened, and that first person said why, and I was like, oh my God, this is no, this is not right. Yes, you can be put up based on your skill, based on your, because there's no point if you have a good skill, there's no point of playing in a lower team. So you need to go up, but you can't be put up because of your size, because of your height. That is unfair. Whoever that made that. So that's where I said, sport club need to show the leadership. Um, Having said that, though, I have also seen the great leaders in the sport area. I have seen a very huge improvement. I have seen people who are willing. They have that appetite. They really want to go extra mile. Great, good on them. That's a great work. And some of the stories that we need to promote. I'm passionate about the Western Bulldog program. There was a young person this year that is a young person that I have worked with his family when a few years ago. I support his family, and he was really a venerable young person. But through the support of the club, support of the Western Bulldog, you uh you wouldn't believe where that young person is now. He's a great man, grown up. People who were supporting him, they were so proud, and I was watching his thing. So that's just example of what the leaders need to do, and good to the Western Bulldog for doing that great service. It's not only for that young person, but the entire community.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a bit of a ridiculous situation, and I can attest as someone who actually plays football myself and is a tall person in the team. It doesn't your height doesn't really matter if you don't have the skills, so you shouldn't be judged on that. We've got another question here from Anja. In your book, do you cover the role of South Sudanese community leaders and community organizations in the positive settlement of in integration of the community?
Yes. I I think I have touched about the responsibility of the community, the responsibility of the community leaders, and I have touched the partnership, the organization working with the community. Now I may have not worded the way that I'm going to say, but I think the community leaders, or influential members of the community, they also need to do their part. They also need to make a move. I don't think that it is helpful for them to say, well, I wanted to live in my small block of this South Sudanese community, and I don't want to extend my network, and I don't want to engage in the next level, and I don't want to listen to the other part. So you should be able to get interact and learn, be ready to learn, and of course, be ready to share some ideas, and take a responsibility. If we go wrong, we go wrong. We you know sorry, if you have gone wrong, um uh so it need to be corrected. If there is a if you have gone wrong, it, you need to be able to accept the responsibility and make a correction there, rather than being defensive, for example. uh, that's how I see it. That's where you can grow. You need to be able to take the sensitive feedback, uh, you know, rather than you reject totally whatever the information that you receive. You interpret it in a different way, and that create the sentiments, in you or in the community. So I think we need to be able to have open minded and be willing to move and be willing to engage, you know, with a different community group, with a different government, you know, organization, with a different non-governmental organization. We need to be able to engage. So that is my message to the community. And community also need to take a responsibility to address some of the issues, you know, within, whether they are family issues or they are community matters. They need to be able to address them and say, hang on. And I give you example here. If the young people are committing, you know, crime or doing nasty activities, we need to sit as a community to say, hang on, where do we want to go from here? This is not what we came for. We came for a better opportunities. We did not come here to see young people being locked in. So why do we spend too much time on a negative, doing a negative activity that may end a young person or a person in a, you know, in a prison, for example. So that is a brave, to me, this is a brave, brave conversation that the community need to take, and people need to accept and reflect on it and learn from it and move from it and say, and and I said this to my family, to, you know, my wife and my children. I said, well, whatever that happened to some of the families that we know, we don't need to take it for granted and laugh it off. We need to take it as a lesson for our life as well. We need to look at it and say, well, we need to learn something from here and adjust what we need to adjust. And that's how we can improve the community. That's how we can integrate better. I hope I have answered the question. Yes, that's how I see it.
Thank you. We are getting to the end now, so we probably only have time for one more question. Unfortunately, there are two questions here. And Angela just said, thank you for the insightful response. Yes, you have answered that question, so that's good. I'm going to have to go with Jasmine's question. They've got here. Um, Thank you, Dr. Abur, for your talk. It was very insightful. My question is, do you think the second generation South Sudanese African teenagers settle well in Australia? If not, what are some of the works that still need to be done in supporting these teenagers?
Good question. I think, well, what need to be done? Yes, it comes back to some of the mentoring programs for them. Uh, it may be a bit. Let me say this. I said this in a respectfully to South Sudanese community and to people that work with South Sudanese community and to the entire, community that have sympathy with South Sudanese community, for example. I said this. Um, if we don't do something for these generations, that generations, their children, well, they will be disadvantaged, and their children will also be disadvantaged. Something need to be done for the next generation to, to have a strong position. If we don't think about it now, then the the children that are growing up currently in a dysfunctioning family, they are going to have their own family, and that their own family will also be dysfunctioning. That is how I see it. So there is more work that need to be done. I think the thinking need to be put in here, and the thinking, people need to be willing again to accept. If you want to improve yourself, you need to be able to listen. You need to be able receive both feedback, you know, painful feedback and exciting feedback, if that is what you want to hear. You need to be able to receive the constructive feedback, and of course those who have mentor, those who have support, they need to be able to get that and learn from it, and keep their life and move to the next one. So yes, there is more work that need to be done. The support need to be done in terms of um, putting young people in different programs that they enjoy, whether it is art. Somebody mentioned the art before, whether it is art. Yes, that the young person need to be supported and engaged in art, and that can, in the next few years, we can see different improvement there. Whether it is uh, you know, uh, young people that choose the sport pathway or education pathway, they need to be supported there. And of course, journey is not. Any journey is painful. When we grow up, you got to you also, there's a movement. There will be up and down, and that is something that needs to be shared with those young people to say, well, it is okay. So we may not get it, uh, you know, in the next few months or whatever, but we may be able to get it. So in the next few whatever. So that's part of learning process. So we need to be able to take that process gently and work consistently, to support one another. So if we don't do that, these young people, uh, that Stepan was asking question, or it's looking after those young people in terms of his research, their children will also be disadvantaged. If something is not going to be, if unless people need to take care of, need to do something. I hope I have answered that question.
Thank you. So we're now have to finish up. Thank you everyone for coming, and a big thank you to Dr. William Abur for coming and giving this great talk with us and answering some of these questions. Um, yeah, so thanks for coming everyone. We've got some thank yous coming in from the guests. Lots of Swati said, thank you, Dr. William Abur. I find your approach is honest, down to earth, insightful, and caring, which is great feedback to hear.
Thank
And
you.
I agree. Yes, lots of thank yous. Anyway, thanks everyone for coming. Hopefully see you at some more of our community author talks or community stories.
Yes, thank you very much. I really enjoy. I hope I'm making the contribution into the society, and that is something that I want to do. I wanted to make, if make my contribution as much as I could in this space, in the space that I'm able to share my ideas, my experience, my knowledge with the community. I really appreciate people who use their time to participate here. It means a lot for me. It's a great thing. Thank you. I hope all of us we want to do great things for the community. And for you, Dal, thank you. And Mika, thank you very much for arranging this, managing this. And Helly, thank you very much, for your work that you have done, the background work, and set me up, and of course, we reached to this day. I hope I have done service to the community or to the audience. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I think you have done a great service today. Anyway, yeah, we'll see. Well, not see, but hopefully we'll see some other people will come to some future events. It was really great hearing from you today.
Great.